Hey there, this is Ari Witten, and welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. This is the place to get all of the latest and greatest science around overcoming fatigue and increasing your energy levels. So today I have with me Emily Fletcher, who is the founder of Ziva Meditation. And she's going to be talking to us all about why meditation is such a powerful tool to help us increase our energy levels and why it's so useful for people struggling with fatigue. Now, there's a lot of good stuff in this interview, and you're really going to want to make sure to listen to all the way to the very end, because there's a little bit of an extra added twist on this interview that is unlike pretty much all my other interviews. So I really want to make sure that you watch all the way to the end. There's kind of a special little thing that goes on here. So quick little background on Emily. She's originally started her meditation training actually during her Broadway career. And so she kind of started in an unusual way, and it was really around performance and wanting to become a better performer. She's going to tell you more about that story in the beginning of this interview, but she's really centered on meditation to enhance performance. That's really what distinguishes Ziva from maybe all the other types of meditation out there. And she's also taught at Google, at Harvard Business School, at Viacom, at Summit Series, and a number of other very impressive places. And she's been featured in the New York Times. Now, on a more personal note, I can tell you that I've actually heard Emily speak from stage and actually guide us through a meditative or mindfulness practice. And that is actually what caused me to reach out to her. Because once I heard her from stage doing this practice and actually guiding me through this practice, it was so powerful and so much more powerful than any other mindfulness or meditation practice that I had ever done before, that I just went, wow, this girl is special in the way that she teaches meditation. So anyway, I ended up talking to her more, and then now we've connected for this podcast. And again, I really want to encourage you to watch the entire thing, because there's a ton of great content in this. And again, there's a little surprise at the end. So more about that as you get through this podcast, and enjoy the podcast. It's a great one. Hi, Emily. So thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I would love if you could start by just telling people a little bit about what it is that you do and how you came to do what you do.
So what I do is I train people to be self-sufficient meditators. I give people the keys to the car, the driving instructions, so they have what I consider to be the most powerful meditation practice out there to take with them for life. And I started a company called Ziva Meditation, and at Ziva we're all about meditation for better performance. And that really means whatever it means for you. Better performance might mean being more present for your kids, or running a more efficient company, or having a bigger impact on the world. But basically, I define high performers as people who raise their hand and say, I want to be better every day. And I'm looking for tools to optimize my mental and physical performance. So at Ziva, we're all about meditation for better performance. And I think that ties into how I came to do what I do, because my background is very much a high performance background. I was on Broadway for 10 years before I came to Ziva. And my last Broadway show was a chorus line where I was understudying 3 of the lead roles, which means that you show up to the theater with really no idea of what's going to happen that night. And sometimes I would start the show as one character, halfway through they switch me to a different character, or I'm just chilling in my dressing room doing my taxes and someone gets on a loudspeaker and is like, Emily Fletcher, we need you on stage. And I would start panicking because I wouldn't know who I was going to play. So I would just grab all 3 of my outfits, run down 7 flights of stairs, and then sometimes I'd be on stage before I knew who I was going to play. And some people are very good at this job. I'm not one of them. I was pretty much sucking at my job. I was on stage, like just singing things I couldn't sing and dancing things that I had not yet have the cardiovascular capabilities for it. And my stress was exacerbating the whole thing. And so, I ended up getting insomnia and anxiety. I couldn't sleep through the night for about 18 months. I started going gray at the tender age of 26. I started getting sick all the time. I was getting bronchitis and sore throats. And then I started getting injured. So here I am, like living my dream on Broadway, doing the thing I'd wanted to do since I was a child. And I was miserable. It was very confusing to me, like why I was on Broadway and my life was not sunshine and roses, because I was very interested in, the pursuit of happiness. I was very much under this I'll be happy when syndrome. But then once I got there, it was the saddest I had ever been. And so I realized that I was more interested in the happiness of pursuit than I was the pursuit of happiness. But I didn't really get that at 22. So I just thought, well, my happiness must be in the next job and the next show and the next boyfriend and the next zero in my bank account. And I did that basically until I ran my body into the ground. And then I found this amazing woman. She was sitting next to me in the dressing room, and she was understudying 5 of the lead roles, which to this day, I don't know how she did it, but this woman was crushing it. I mean, every song she sang was a celebration. Every dance was a celebration. Every bite of food was a celebration. And I was like, excuse me, what do you know that I don't know? She's like, I meditate. I was like, oh God, because this was a decade ago. So no one was talking about it then like they are now.
Oh, you're one of those.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like, oh God, you've got that like hippy dippy, you smell like
Yeah.
patchouli and granola all day long. And so I just kind of judged her, and I was like, you don't understand my stress. You don't understand my job. But she did. Like, her job was harder than my job, but I still didn't believe her. And so then finally I was just sucking at my job and tired of it. And so I said, well, what do I have to lose? And so I went along with this intro to meditation talk. I liked what I heard. So I signed up for this 4-day course. First day, first course, I was meditating. To be honest, I had no idea what that meant, but I was in a different state of consciousness than I had ever been in before, and I liked it. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months.
Wow.
And that was 10 years ago, and I've slept every night since. And I stopped going gray. I'm 38 years old now. I have like 3 gray hairs. I was legitimately going gray over a decade ago. I stopped getting sick. I didn't get sick for 8.5 years, which was very unusual for me. I started enjoying my job again, and I finally thought, well, why does everybody not do this? So I left Broadway, I went to India, and I started what became a 3-year training process to teach. And then when I got back, I started teaching a lot of my friends, which were actors, so I started working with a lot of high performers. Within a year, I had taught Oscar, Grammy, and Tony Award winners.
Wow.
I'm looking to have the EGOT of students soon. And so I learned something from working with high performers, and that is that we love our illusion of control. We really like to hold on to the reins of life. And so basically out of that evolved the Ziva technique. And so the Ziva technique is this trifecta of mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. And what's happening now that meditation is becoming so popular is that everyone's just lumping all these techniques under the same umbrella term, but they're not actually all the same thing. Like, people are like, oh, I'm doing like a Facebook meditation, and I'm doing a fighting with my girlfriend meditation, and I'm doing a eating Doritos meditation. I'm like, you guys, we can't just call like anything you want meditation. Like,
yeah, it's confusing, right? I mean, there's very like categorically different practices that are all being lumped under this one semantic umbrella. So how do you kind of piece things out and differentiate things there?
Yeah, so good question. So mindfulness, I would define as anytime you're directing your focus. So a guided visualization, probably any of the meditation apps you have is actually mindfulness or visualization. Anytime you're counting your breaths or visualizing your chakras, anytime you're directing your focus, I would put that under the category of mindfulness. And in that, a very small part of the brain lights up very, very bright. And actually, mindfulness is derivative of styles of meditation that were originally made from monks. Right now, then there's the meditation, and the way I think about it at Ziva with our technique, we use mindfulness as the appetizer, meditation is the main course, and manifesting is the dessert. So most of what people learn when they come to me is meditation. And how I would define meditation is when you're accessing a verifiable 4th state of consciousness. So different than waking, sleeping, or dreaming. And we know that it's different because if you hook your brain up to an EEG machine, in waking, sleeping, and dreaming states of consciousness, the right and left hemispheres of the brain are functioning separately from each other, versus in meditation, all of the leads of EEG rise and fall in unison, which is cool because that it is that simultaneity, it is that expansiveness, it is actually a surrendering technique. When you do that, you are increasing your neuroplasticity because the whole brain lights up, whereas mindfulness, a small part of the brain lights up but very bright. In meditation, the whole brain lights up. So it's like you're pulling the lens of your awareness back, and you're increasing neuroplasticity, and you're also giving your body rest that is 5 times deeper than sleep.
Wow.
And that's not an insignificant point, because as we all know, if you give the body the rest that it needs, it knows how to heal itself. Now, one of the things that it heals itself from is stress. Less stress you have in your body, better able you are to perform at the top of your game. So to further differentiate these things, the way I think about it is that mindfulness is really good at dealing with your stress in the right now. Like, I'm stressed right now, so I'll listen to like 10 minutes of this app and I'll feel better in the right now. It's like taking an aspirin, right? I have a headache right now. I take some aspirin. I feel better in the right now. Great, useful, glad it exists. Meditation is actually getting rid of your stress from your past. It's going in, it's cleaning out all of that stress that we have stored in our cellular memory and even our epigenetic memory from all the stress that we have from our past. So that's really like a Cliff's Notes version of the difference between the two. And then we have what I consider to be the dessert of the Ziva technique, which is manifesting, which is really just making shit happen in your life. It's like it's consciously creating a life you love versus just reacting to and being a victim to your life circumstances. It's going in and saying like, okay, now that I've tapped this source energy, what do I actually want to do on this planet? Like, you understand, it's like being a creator versus a victim, and
Right.
choosing to direct your focus.
Yeah. So how does that piece tie into meditation and mindfulness?
Well, you could manifest even without meditating or without mindfulness. It's just a lot more powerful if you do. Like, to me, you meditate so that you can access source energy, so that you can get rid of a lot of your old fear and old stress, so that you're manifesting from at least a place of neutrality, if not like supercharging. Like, to me, meditation supercharges your manifesting practice. And if you are manifesting, like, I recommend that people do it right after they meditate. So in the style of meditation that we do at Ziva, you're given a mantra. And a mantra is not a slogan. It's not a saying. It's not an affirmation. The mantras that we use are meaningless primordial sounds. And the point of these sounds are to de-excite the nervous system. And when you de-excite something, you create order, which gets rid of that stress in your cells, but you're also basically tapping into source energy, right brain, collective consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. And so for you, manifesting, having just de-excited your nervous system and access that right brain collective consciousness, it's just much easier and faster to create the stuff that you want to create in your life versus trying to do it from a left brain individuality place of fear.
Gotcha. So you use the term source energy, like tapping into source energy. If somebody's not familiar with that term, maybe they have no experience in kind of any sort of meditation, spiritual practice where they might have encountered a term like that. What does that mean? Can you kind of delve a little deeper into what does it mean for meditation to help you tap into source energy?
Sure. So a great analogy for this is a cell phone, right? Like, we all know what it's like when like my cell phone gets to 20% and then, oh crap, it's at 10%. So I better plug it in soon. And then if you plug it in for like a few minutes, well, maybe you'll give yourself a few more minutes of juice, versus if you actually shut your phone off completely, like turn it off and plug it in to the source of energy, in this case, the wall unit. When you unplug it and when you turn it back on, the phone will have charged so much more efficiently because you weren't like plugging it in and simultaneously on Wi-Fi and watching a million videos. Like, you could charge your phone while you're running a million videos, but it's not going to be as effective. Right. And so what we're doing with the meditation is we're utilizing the mantra to de-excite the nervous system. It's not about turning off the brain. And we can talk about that in a minute, but meditation has nothing to do with giving the brain a command to shut up. And we've got to let go of this old paradigm around meditation because it's making a lot of people feel like failures. So when I say de-excite, I don't mean clearing the mind. I mean actually inducing rest. And what's happening physiologically is that your heart rate slows, your body temperature cools, and your metabolic rate decreases. Now, don't worry, this isn't going to make you gain weight. When I say metabolic rate, I mean the rate with which the body consumes oxygen. Right? So you're basically de-exciting, giving your body this deep rest. It's like you're closing down all those windows, like closing down all the irrelevant apps on your phone, and then maybe even turning it off for a minute so that and then you plug it into the source. Now, what that looks like, if you've ever read anything about like super consciousness or the right brain, or there's a really fascinating TED talk by a neuroscientist named Jill Bolte Taylor. She was a neuroscientist at Harvard, and she had a stroke in the left hemisphere of her brain. And so she got to watch as she started operating almost exclusively from a right brain place. Now, the cool thing about Ziva is that you don't have to have a stroke in order to do that. We just use the mantras to help us access the right brain.
I personally much prefer it without the stroke.
Great. I think it's really wise of you. But that people have said that the right brain is the piece of us that is connected to everyone and everything. Our right brain is in charge of our intuition, creativity, color, music, creative problem solving. And the way I like to think about it is that our right brain is like the antenna of our individuality that's plugging into the Wi-Fi network or the cloud computer network that is creative intelligence, or the place from whence ideas come. Like, our ideas are not our own. You're just like, oh, right, wait, write this down. It's like we're downloading those ideas from somewhere. And it's our right brain that is the piece of us that connects into that. And so when you're meditating, because you're not exclusively in that left brain, like most of us spend most of our lives, we get to tap into that collective consciousness, which sounds a little hippy dippy, but there's actually an incredible amount of neuroscience coming out that's backing this stuff up, that it's not just esoteric frou-frou language, that there's actually a pretty scientific, energetic, and neurochemical reality behind this.
Mm. And so when you've tapped into that, how does that translate into sort of, for somebody who's more practical and kind of like very grounded in the kind of the I guess the consensual reality of most Westerners, what does it mean for them as far as a benefit to their life to tap into that sort of collective consciousness or source energy?
Yeah, so it's twofold. Like, the most practical one is that you do your afternoon meditation and it feels like a supercharged power nap sitting up. And because you're giving your body rest that's 5 times deeper than sleep, in a 15 or 20-minute meditation, you've given yourself the equivalent of about an hour to an hour and a half nap without the sleep hangover. Because when you're meditating, your brain doesn't flood with sleep chemicals, which are good and useful, but you're flooding your brain with bliss chemicals, which are dopamine and serotonin, which are alkaline in nature. So this can have an anti-aging effect. You feel more awake and refreshed on the other side. And because you've de-excited your nervous system, you've gotten rid of some of that old stress from the past, which is basically making you stupid. Like, stress makes you stupid, and there's no way around that. Like, yes, there's such a thing as good stress, but I'm not talking about like a cryotherapy or like a sauna. That's good stress.
Sure.
I'm talking about the chronic stress that most of us are under and have been for decades. So that's what I'm talking about. When you meditate, you're getting rid of that so that you have more computing power for the task at hand. So to really simplify it, 2 things happen when you meditate. 1, you're more awake on the other side, and 2, you have less stress in your body so that you have more energy to execute on the task at hand.
Beautiful. Well, I think my audience generally appreciates things that will give them more energy. So I think the point is well taken, that if you're getting rest that is 5 times more powerful than sleep, that's a pretty powerful method. Mm-hmm. And there's actually, just as a quick aside, there's actually quite a number of studies that have tested various meditation and mindfulness methods specifically in people with chronic fatigue syndrome. And it's actually proven that it does work to significantly boost energy levels. Great. So just as an aside on a little, kind of niche in the scientific literature that connects to this.
See those studies. And I mean, I can tell you just anecdotally, I have about 7,000 students now. And so a decent percentage of those are dealing with some sort of, chronic fatigue. And, they report that, my body's healing more quickly. I have more energy. My sleep is better. Because that stress also, it not only makes you stupid, it gives you insomnia, and it decreases the quality of your sleep. So because most of us are using sleep as a time for stress release. So if you start to use the meditation as a time for stress release, then your body can actually use sleep as a time for sleep. And so your sleep becomes more efficient and your body's able to regenerate more while you are sleeping.
That's a really nice distinction. I've never heard that. I like that. I might take that from you. I'll make sure to credit you. So you mentioned, you kind of alluded to some of the neuroscience around stress and how stress affects us. I would love if you could just kind of elaborate on what that neuroscience is all about. How does stress affect our brain and I guess the rest of our body?
Yeah. So to understand why the human body reacts to stress in the way that it does, we really have to cut back in time a few thousand years. And say we're hunting and gathering in the woods, and saber-toothed tiger jumps out at us with the intent to kill. Body's going to launch into a series of chemical reactions. First thing that will happen is that our digestion will flood with acid to shut down digestion, because it takes so much energy to digest our food. That's why we all fall asleep after Thanksgiving. I mean, in addition to the tryptophan, there's also just your body's tired from digesting so much food. So that shuts down almost immediately because you need all hands on deck to fight or flee this tiger. Now, that same acid, though that can lead to, IBS, that can lead to acid reflux, that can lead to indigestion, and even skin disorders. Because then what happens is that acid seeps onto your skin so that you don't taste very good if that tiger bites into you. So even like acne, psoriasis, rashes, a lot of that can come from too much heat or inflammation from that acid on your skin. Then your bladder and bowels evacuate so that you can be light on your feet so that you can fight or flee the tiger. So the nervous poos that people get before they have big presentations to make, usually that is the body trying to protect you. The immune system goes to the back burner because who cares if you're going to get cancer if you're about to be killed by a tiger, right? Like those long-term healing capabilities become tertiary at best if your body thinks it's immediately threatened.
Mm-hmm.
Then your adrenaline levels increase and your cortisol levels increase. And, I don't really like freaking people out, but if you want to freak yourself out, just have like a quick Google search about what cortisol is doing to the body. It's not cute. It's infertility, erectile dysfunction, premature aging, balding, belly fat. Like it's not good for us. I guess it's good for us. It's good for you if you're trying to outrun a tiger or if you need to lift a car off your baby. Super useful. But if your demands are in-laws or red-eye flights or deadlines or emails, then this fight or flight stress reaction has become maladaptive and it's now disallowing us from performing at the top of our game. And so what we do when we meditate is that we're not only going in and clearing out that adrenaline and cortisol, we're replacing it with dopamine and serotonin, which are alkaline in nature. So if you've ever read any studies on like why eating greens is good for you, same gig with meditation. It's making your body more alkaline versus acidic. And that can reverse body age, that can increase your brain plasticity, that can increase your recovery time, it improves your sleep, it improves your sex. And what's a little bit more intangible that we don't have as much neuroscience around, but I can speak to personally and also anecdotally for my 7,000 students, is that you start to be in flow state more. You start to feel more serendipity, more synchronicity. And that sounds a little woo-woo and a little hippy-dippy, but it makes sense that if you're starting to increase neuroplasticity, that means that you're using not only your left brain, which is your critical mind, but you're using your right brain, which is your creative mind. You're not only identified with your left brain individuality, but you're also tapping into this right brain totality. And so it's easier to hear nature when it is speaking to you. It's easier for you to listen to your gut when those ideas come, when the inspiration comes.
Beautiful. So how does, we talked about kind of this fight or flight response, and obviously there's a distinction between when this is happening in the short term, as a beneficial thing in response to that immediate threat versus the chronic long-term aspect of it. How does it relate to things like anxiety, chronic pain, fatigue, and how does meditation kind of, I guess, affect those neural processes, and how does meditation, I guess, relate to things like anxiety and chronic pain and chronic fatigue?
Sure. So I'll address them individually. Anxiety
Okay.
is just another name for stress. So like in India, we just call like all this stuff stress, like anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, PTSD. Like these are all just different names for stress. And that's not to be dismissive of the thing, but I do think that it's important that we start to retrain ourselves to look at these things as symptoms of an underlying imbalance. And the underlying imbalance is a stressed nervous system. And when you start to bring that into balance, then almost all of the symptoms start to fall away. And so anxiety is just kind of another name for stress. You could say that anxiety and depression are two sides of the same coin. Anxiety is reviewing the past and anxiety, people have a tendency to rehearse the future more, whereas depression, people have a tendency to review the past. But in either case, you're in your left brain, whereas when we meditate, we're waking up that right brain, which is in charge of the right now, the right here, right now. And that is where our bliss and fulfillment hang out, right here, right now. And so meditation is not only moving you away from that, but it's moving you towards the present moment. And that's really the mindfulness element. I would call mindfulness the art of bringing your awareness into the present moment. which is always where our bliss and fulfillment hang out. And also when you start flooding your brain with dopamine and serotonin, it's very hard to have anxiety at the same time. So there's that. Chronic pain. In Ayurveda, which is the sister science to the meditation that I teach, Ayurveda is an ancient system of healing. Veda means knowledge and Ayur means longevity. So Ayurveda is the knowledge of longevity, and it's a very complex system of healing where you're looking at the whole body, everything you eat, every workout, every time of your meal, the time that you sleep, and using all of that to bring the body into balance. But in Ayurveda, all pain, all disease comes from inflammation. And inflammation comes from too much heat in the body or too much acid, right? Now, I'm sure there are some exceptions to this. I've had one student who her body produced too little cortisol, which is the only time I've ever heard of that happening. So I never like using the word all, but I'm going to say like 99% of the time, disease comes from inflammation, which is heat, which in Ayurvedic medicine is acid. So there, you've probably heard people say like all disease comes from inflammation. Well, it is that acid in the body that's making things inflamed. And then the other thing around pain is that if you look at this from an energetic standpoint, pain comes when there's blockage in the body. And blockage can come from emotional trauma, physical trauma, dietary trauma. So anytime the body gets out of whack, and if there's any sort of a blockage, either in the arteries or in energetic meridians or in your digestion, then we have like energy building up on one side, but there's a block happening. And if this happens for long enough, it can become acute. And so what we're doing with meditation is through no effort of your own. You don't even have to intellectually understand any of this. Just you using the mantra that you receive at Ziva, just you inducing that deep rest, all these energetic meridians start to open up quite innocently, quite spontaneously, because that is our natural state. And so once those blocks start moving, the energy starts flowing, and that, and because of the dopamine and serotonin, you're alkalizing the body, which takes away a lot of the inflammation, which helps with the pain. Now, it's not a quick fix. This isn't like, oh, I'm going to do one 20-minute guided visualization on my meditation app, and then I'm going to be better. It's like, no, it's a daily practice. You got to.
It's like popping an ibuprofen pill.
Yeah.
Instant relief.
Yeah, like you can do one guided visualization and feel better in the right now, but if you actually want to like undo a lifetime of blocked channels, well, that means you have to have a daily discipline and a daily practice. And I would argue twice a day.
Yeah.
So you said, so that was anxiety, chronic pain, and what was the other one?
Fatigue.
Oh, yeah. So fatigue, we kind of talked about. It's just if you're giving your body deep rest,
right,
you're going to be more awake in the waking state.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going back to pain for a second. I know you've mentioned before, I've heard you mention that a lot of people in your following who practice your methods have had chronic migraines previously and then have had amazing success with that.
Yeah, we have like 90% success rate with migraines, maybe more, especially if the migraines are stress induced. You know, I do think that there are some cases where migraines are caused by something else, like a pinched nerve or something that's more structural. So yeah, so if the migraines are structural, like from a pinched nerve or something, then we have a lower success rate. But if the migraines are stress induced, we have crazy high success rates. And what I like to say is if that doesn't work, then you could always masturbate. Because if you masturbate like at the beginning of a migraine, then when you orgasm, the vascular system in your brain dilates, and that can help to stave off the migraine.
Beautiful. On that note, I've heard masturbation is actually a cure-all for pretty much every disease. I could be wrong about that, but
that statement has not been approved by the FDA.
Depending on who you talk to, it may also be the cause of many diseases. Yeah. I know many puritanical religious people may have come up with ideas like that in the past.
Well, it's actually interesting. I was at a conference this weekend and someone was talking about it, and they were talking about that, like, you know, obviously when you meditate, like, all of your chakras open, like all these energetic portals open, and same thing happens when you have sex with someone. And so their argument against masturbation is that if you're orgasming and there's no one to reciprocate with, then you're like giving away your energy and it's not being reciprocated. And I never heard that before, but it was a less puritanical argument for just having sex instead of masturbating.
Yeah, interesting. I want to go back to a couple things that you had mentioned earlier. One is this, that you mentioned mindfulness as something that emerged more for monks to practice. And I know I've heard you talk about kind of two paths or two types of meditation. And I would love if you could kind of go into that, like the type that emerged for monks and the type that emerged for whoever that emerged for.
Sure. So this was news to me when I first started learning about it, because I thought whatever monks must be doing must be so much more powerful because they're monks. I thought they must be vibrating or levitating all the time, but it's actually the other way around. If you have a job and kids and stuff to do, then you have less time in your day with which to meditate. So you actually want to practice it's even more powerful. You want to go in and really clean house so that you can deliver the most amazing version of you to your family, to your job. Whereas monks are meditating all day, right? Like that is their contribution to society. If they're gardening, it's a meditation. If they're writing a book, it's a meditation. And so mindfulness, that word didn't even exist until like mid 60s when John Kabat-Zinn and his cohorts came back from India and Tibet, where they had been studying meditation, Tibetan Buddhism, and they basically started teaching Buddhist philosophies and techniques, but removing all the scary Buddhist words so that a pretty conservative Christian society didn't get freaked out by it. And we owe a huge debt of gratitude to him and his cohorts because they introduced these practices and these philosophies without people feeling like they were in conflict with their religion, which is great. And I think a lot of people have found really beautiful stress relieving tools as a byproduct of that. But mindfulness, as we know it now, is sort of a westernization and, in some cases, a simplification of monastic practices, meaning that you're utilizing, I would define mindfulness as the art of bringing your awareness into the present moment. That's it. It's the art of bringing your awareness into the present moment. And there's millions of ways to do that. You could focus on your breath. You could focus on the water over your hands in the shower. You could focus on your feet as you're walking. And that's when people are saying, oh, we'll do a walking meditation. What they're saying is, I'm going to be conscious of walking. I'm going to do a dishwashing meditation. That's not a meditation. That's you washing dishes consciously. And I get a little like, it's not defensive, but it's just like, you guys, we got to be more specific with our vocabulary because it's confusing people. Like you said, if we're just using this one blanket term as meditation, then people are like, well, should I clear my mind or should I focus? Should I think about what I'm doing or should I let go? Which is why I really want people to start to be more specific. So mindfulness, you're directing your focus, and really it's the art of bringing your awareness into the present moment. And you can do that while you're doing anything. You could consciously drive, you could consciously ski, you could consciously have sex, you could consciously eat food. And that's what people are saying. Bring your awareness into the right here, right now, versus let me plan my day and you stress out about tomorrow's meeting while I'm shoving food in my mouth. It's like, no, let me taste it, smell it, feel it, touch it. Let me enjoy the sensation in the right now. Beautiful, very relevant practice, but it's really only handling your stress in the right now. And people can get, even with that, they can get a little militaristic about it. They can like white knuckle their way to enlightenment with like focusing practices.
Right.
Versus meditation to me is all about letting go. It's all about surrendering. And what I teach at Ziva, even though it's based in a 6,000-year-old practice, it was designed for people with busy minds and busy lives. It was designed to be integrated into daily life. It was designed to make you better at your job, better at being a parent. And that's why it's only 20 minutes twice a day. What I teach in person is 20 minutes twice a day. And then our online course is 15 minutes twice a day because the mantras are a little bit gentler in the online course. But even still, it's like, so you wake up, you do it before breakfast. And then when you would have had the coffee or the chocolate or the nap, you steal away to your car or to the stairwell and you do it at work. And then you have this surge of productivity and creativity and joy on the other side versus like crawling through the end of your workday and then going home and like freaking out on your kids because you're exhausted.
Yeah, beautiful. So one other thing I wanted to go back to that you mentioned briefly was this idea of meditation as not thinking. And so what's the deal with that? Is when we meditate, what's supposed to be going on in our brain? Are we supposed to not be thinking any thoughts? Is it just blank, or what is that?
The only time the brain flatlines is when we're dead. And like, we gotta let go of this idea that meditation means clearing the mind. I think there's like one dude out there telling everyone to clear their minds. And I really gotta find this guy and teach him how to meditate.
I thought you were gonna say slap him.
No, I just want to teach him. It'll just make the job so much easier. Now, it is possible to access different states of consciousness, and it is possible to move beyond the realm of thinking into the realm of being. That is possible, or I would be out of a job. What is not possible is giving your brain a command to shut up. And that's what most people do. They're like, they assume that meditation is like that they should already know how to do it. because it's simple, people think they should already know how to do it. So they just sit down in a chair and they're like, okay, brain, stop thinking. I sure would like a snack. That's delicious. Maybe I should get up and have a snack. Wait, now I'm thinking. Now I'm thinking about how I'm thinking. I suck at meditation and I quit.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning and the end of most people's career, because they're judging themselves based on misinformation. So meditation has nothing to do with how good you are at shutting up your brain. The mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. And so trying to give your brain a command to be silent is as effective as trying to give your heart a command to stop beating. So it depends on what style of meditation you're practicing as far as what's supposed to be happening. But here's how you'll know if it's working. Is your life getting better?
I thought you were going to list off like 5 things after that. It's just that one diagnostic criteria.
One. Like, is your life getting better or not? That's the point of meditation, to get good at life, not to get good at meditation.
Yeah. So how can you guard against that in the sense of the fact that most people who begin a meditation practice have that kind of reaction, and then they get frustrated and they think I suck at meditation, and then they give up so easily. How do you help people get off to the right start and kind of do it enough that they actually create the habit and can stick with it and not have that early failure and giving up experience?
So that's really our job at Ziva, right? Like, we create, like, it's not just like, I don't teach a one-day meditation course, right? And my courses are not cheap. Like, I want people to put an investment in. You want energy to flow in, then you have to put out energy out. You know, you create the outflow, you create the space, and the energy flows in. And so people are making an energetic investment in the course, which is part of what gets them committed. And then people are moving through a very highly curated system and matriculation. And then they have access to a lifetime of support and follow-up. And that is really important. Just because meditation is simple does not mean it's not powerful. Meditation, as far as I've found, it's the single most powerful tool I've ever found to get rid of stress. And that's not to be taken lightly. Like, you really want, I know there's like 1,000,001 meditation apps out there, and yes, you can do them just as safely as you could take an aspirin. But if you actually want to get rid of the root cause, you want to get rid of your stress from your past, you want to be self-sufficient and up-leveling your performance every day, that requires training just like anything else. And I would say you want to find a teacher that you respect. You want to find a community that you enjoy. And I would actually recommend that you make an investment in it. Like, how many free meditation apps do you have on your phone right now that you've never listened to or done more than once? We don't value what we don't pay for in the West. As you know, as sad or as sick as that might be, judged by some people, we just don't. So I've been teaching now for 5 years, and like I keep saying, I have a lot of students, and so I've seen these habits and these patterns again and again and again and again. And people think I'm psychic. I'm not psychic, but I can anticipate what patterns are going to come up for you, and I can even give you tools to anticipate that before they come up. Because a lot of the reason why people quit is that meditation brings up and out a lot of old stress. There's very much a detox process that happens for most people when they start. And that's my job, is to help people through it. And I'm really good at my job. And so, you know, I think that don't assume that you already know how to meditate, and don't be frustrated with yourself. If you've never made an investment and you've never gotten any training, then of course you don't know how to meditate, and of course you're not going to stick with it. But once you have some training, and once you have a tool that's designed for you, then it's so amazing, and your life gets so much better that you can't imagine it without it.
Beautiful. So for someone who maybe has no experience meditation and really, you know, has heard you talk about things like mindfulness versus meditation and some of these other different techniques that have evolved, how would you sum up the difference between your style of meditation that you teach versus kind of what someone might encounter from other books or programs?
Yeah, so what most people are doing is one or the other. They're either giving you like a free mindfulness app, or it's like you pay $30 and you go to a drop-in studio and somebody walks you through an experience and you do some version of mindfulness, or maybe it's a sound bath, or it's an experience and it's designed to change your state of being in the right now. Awesome. And then there's other places where you could go and you just learn the meditation, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and sometimes a little culty and sometimes a little like group thinky, versus what I'm really proud of what we've done at Ziva is that we have created this trifecta of what I consider to be the most powerful tools and in a ratio and in a matriculation that is really for high performers. It's for people that are doing it not because they want to change their identity, not because they want to become a vegan and wear patchouli and move to a cave, but that they're meditating because they want to really fulfill their mission. They want to show up big time in their life. And then we've created this beautiful global community of other high performers that have this thing in common. And so not only are you learning all 3 techniques, but then you also have access to me to guide you on the journey and to this community of other high performers that love meditation. And I think that's valuable as well, because it's hard to do something in a vacuum if you feel like you're by yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. So if you could leave people with just maybe 2 or 3 kind of tips or things that they might want to consider in the process of getting started, if they're now intrigued by the concept of meditation and they want to start pursuing this, are there any things that you might recommend to them, just as like quick little tips?
Yeah, so the big one is the mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. That's the only thing you heard from this interview. It will be incredibly valuable on your meditation journey. Know that meditation is like any other skill, so it takes some training and a teacher to learn it. And if you want to get started, just go to zivameditation.com, and I have hundreds of free videos there. And then I also have our online training there, which is just a couple minutes a day for a few days. And then you have a practice to take with you for life, and you have access to our global community, which is really rad.
Beautiful. Well, on one final, more personal note, I want to mention that I have meditated a lot in the past, and I've actually gotten off track, I'd say, in the last year or 2. Just as you know, life of an entrepreneur is pretty crazy, and oftentimes you're working, 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and the irony of that is that you actually need it more during that kind of lifestyle, and yet you have less time for it, and it's harder to fit in, and life becomes more stressful and chaotic. But I actually feel compelled after listening to you now to restart my practice, and I know that you're going to be in San Diego here in a few days, and that you're going to do an in-person session, and I'm actually going to sign up for that and do your in-person course with you.
I'm so excited. We're going to have so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And then by the time I publish this podcast, I will have done that already. And then I can add a little extra note on the end of this as far as my personal experience having done your course.
Good. And then we can do like a before and after. So it might be fun to like document now, like anything that's showing up for you, how your sleep is, like how stress shows up for you. It might be fun to document, and then you could share with your folks afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm so looking forward to seeing you and taking your course with you. And thank you so much for this wonderful interview. It was really a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure. I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Hey, this is Ari again, and thank you so much for listening. So at the beginning of this podcast, during the introduction, I mentioned to listen all the way through to the very end because there's a little surprise. Well, now that you've done that, you probably know what that little ending is all about. And I wanted to record this little ending piece for you now that I've actually done what I said I was going to do. And I've actually gone and taken Emily's meditation class. And I've been now practicing it for 2 to 3 weeks now, and I wanted to give you an update on this. From my personal experience, this is just me talking about my own meditation practice at this point. And I've actually done it 2 times a day for 20 minutes, every single day since the course. And what I can tell you is that this is powerful stuff. Now, I've meditated on and off for over a decade now, and I've done lots and lots of different practices. What I can tell you is this is by far the most powerful meditation practice that I've ever done. And it's so simple, yet so powerful. And as far as what I've experienced, the best way I can describe it is as we go about our days, and I can speak just for me, I guess, as I go about my day and I have a million different things that are on my mind, a million things that I'm trying to get done and projects I'm trying to manage, tension builds up in the body. And there's this relationship between tension in the body and you could call it tension in the mind. But tension in the mind maybe feels more like anxiety or just kind of racing thoughts and just the mind going and going and going. And there's this sort of vicious cycle that happens between, I would say, a tense body and that physical tension and that racy sort of anxiety type of thought. And when we live very fast-paced lifestyles, that builds up and I think creates kind of a vicious cycle in a way, with more and more tension, more and more anxiety, more and more of that kind of racing thoughts where you can't shut your brain off. So what I've experienced is just this profound relaxation where everything calms down. And instead of all of that tension and anxiety just building up through the course of the day and then kind of feeling wiped out from it, all of a sudden now I feel relaxed and refreshed all day long because of these two little blocks of 20-minute meditation practice. It literally just like erases all of the physical tension and all of the mental tension and anxiety in the body. And it's just like, it's like wiping the whiteboard clean. And as soon as you do that, you just go back down into this beautiful place of relaxation where the best way I can describe it is like you are operating in the place that your body and brain are meant to be operating from, instead of this place that's contaminated and disrupted by all of this tension and anxiety. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to feel that way. I feel more productive now. I feel more clarity of thought. I feel like my relationships are better because I'm bringing a better sort of energy to that relationship where I'm more loving and more affectionate instead of kind of more in my head with those kind of racy thoughts and work-related stuff going on. And I'm also sleeping better because by the time it comes time to sleep, my body is already in a state of relaxation. I don't need an hour or 2 hours to kind of de-stress my body and stop the racing thoughts in order for my body to go into sleep mode. I'm already there. So I feel there's a huge improvement in terms of sleep efficiency and how powerful and restful that sleep is. And so, overall, I just feel a huge decrease in tension and anxiety and just that feeling of being stressed, and more physical energy, better mental performance, better sleep. And, I've noticed all of these benefits just within the span of about 2 weeks. So I would really highly recommend doing Emily's meditation course, and you can do this online. She has an online meditation course that you can sign up for. If you go to theenergyblueprint.com/meditation, all the information will be there. To be honest, I actually am blown away with all of the benefits that I've received in just such a short period of time from practicing this form of meditation. So again, I really encourage you all, especially if you're stress balls, if you live a high-paced life, if you have a ton on your plate as far as work and kids and relationship, and maybe you're thinking, well, I don't have even more time to do some other thing. Well, the reality is when you make time to reset your brain and your body through this kind of practice, it makes you so much more efficient and more powerful and more productive. And it helps you perform better in every other aspect of your life and all the other hours of the day. So it's really a win-win. Yes, you have this little bit of time that you have to take to do this, but the benefits that it will have on every other aspect of your life are so profound that in my view, you can't afford not to do this. So for me, this is a practice that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I sincerely hope that you will go out and start this practice with me and start doing this 2 times a day, and that you'll learn from Emily. So go take her course. Again, you can get more information on the show notes page, which there's a link below this video, but you can also just go to theenergyblueprint.com/meditation. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week.